and not just the past constituents who elected somebody to office. And so if our population in Los Angeles changes, then let's say more people move eastward because the housing prices are cheaper there, or there are other population shifts where there's a growth of Latino population or Asian American population or other populations, that we are always as responsive as possible to that future demographic change and not just the past. That's the hope with the commission, that we really are trying to cut the ties of self-interest and give commissioners the ability to listen to where our communities are.
Okay, one more question for you, Kathy. Native Americans also live in LA County, and they're a smaller population maybe, but they also need representation. How can they increase their access and representation?
Yes, well, first of all, Native Americans, I live in the community of San Gabriel, which is the home of the Gabrielino Tongva tribe. And there are many people who are Native Californians who are not recognized, but they are there and have a long history as being the original residents of Los Angeles County. What I would say is, first and foremost, consider applying to the commission because it is open to anybody. And the second would be consider organizing your community to testify before the commission once it's created. And that can be as simple as gathering yourselves and telling the story of your community, both why it's important, what the history is, what the culture is, and also where you're located. Those important factors will then help the commission to make sure that when they draw the line, they're thoughtful about where your community is, and to the extent possible, they can kind of keep you whole and elevate the ability of your community to elect people who represent and listen to you.
Okay, great, wonderful. So we're going to go to our next speaker, and that is Rosalind Gold. Hi, Rosalind, how are you? Chief Public Policy Officer for NALEO Educational Fund. Please go ahead and talk to us about Latinos and redistricting.
Great. Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you all for joining us for this really important dialogue. I want to thank Ethnic Media Services and the LA County Registrar's Office, as well as all of you who have joined us on the call. And Pilar, thank you so much for your moderating this discussion. So I'm Rosalind Gold. I'm Chief Public Policy Officer with the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. That's the NALEO Educational Fund. And our mission is to facilitate full Latino participation in the American political process. So as you've heard, redistricting is critical for the opportunity of Latinos and other represented communities to choose elected officials who are accountable to them, who represent them, who listen to their issues and concerns. So that's why it's important. It allows communities to elect and choose accountable representatives. And for Latino and other underrepresented communities, it's particularly important because of discrimination, both in the electoral process, but in other parts of economic, educational opportunities. This kind of discrimination makes it even more critical that Latinos and other underrepresented groups can choose their representatives. Kathy had talked about the Garza case. And this is one that was very important for Latinos. This came about in the late 1980s, and MALDEF and other groups looked at what was happening with the LA County redistricting. And what happened is the supervisors deliberately, there was court information the courts found, deliberately, intentionally drew district lines to split up the Latino community. The Latino community was growing, and they drew the lines to deliberately split the Latino community into 4 different districts so they could not elect the candidate that they felt would best represent them. And it was found to violate the Voting Rights Act, and that led to much more fair redistricting. But we just have to continue to make sure that the lines are drawn in a way that complies with the Constitution and complies with the Voting Rights Act. And therefore, having Latino representation on the commission is also very important to help achieve that goal. But it's not only important to ensure that we have a fair redistricting, but it's also important because there's very talented, very experienced, many good Latino civic leaders with a wealth of experience and understanding of LA County who can share this expertise and this experience with the commission. And if we want to have LA County citizens and residents have confidence in the commission, it really does need to reflect the full diversity of all of our underrepresented communities. I want to leave you with some very important data about the Latino community in LA County. 1/2 of the county's residents, 1 out of 2 LA County residents is Latinos, and Latinos comprise over 1/3, 37% of the registered voters in the counties. So if you don't have strong Latino representation on this commission, it can't really be a commission that really reflects LA County's diversity. So I would want to also mention in response to a question that had come up, which is what kind of restrictions are there for service after you serve on the commission. The restrictions are a little different than those for the state commission. For the LA County Commission, a commission member is ineligible for a period of 5 years from the date they're appointed to hold elective public office at federal, state, or county or city level in California. And a commission member will also be ineligible for 3 years after the date of appointment to hold certain appointed offices or to hold certain staff offices. What I'd like to suggest is perhaps, Monica, can you put in the link to the frequently asked questions that's on the county's website? Because I think that's an invaluable resource in terms of these requirements. So I just want to, again, urge you to get the message out to communities about the importance of this being a diverse commission, about the fact that we do have talented people with expertise who have a great wealth of experience and enormous commitment to public service. And this is a great opportunity for them and a great opportunity for LA County. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. There's a question here. For someone considering a political career, would becoming a commissioner be a good start?
I would say if you can live with the restrictions post-service, yes, but otherwise I actually think that this is not really a good way for a political career because you do have to live with these restrictions. Also, if you've already started to do any political work, you may already have disqualifying conflicts of interest. There's lots of other great paths to pursue if you want to get into politics. I wouldn't say this is an optimal one.
Okay. Here we have Hispanic LA has another question having to do with who funds the commission and what kinds of resources do they have?
In census data. So, for example, the commission takes the information from census, but the census itself does not have an Armenian box. So for the Armenian American community, the work is really twofold, where we have to encourage our community to mark the other box and then write in Armenian. And that is not thoroughly done, and it's not 100% correct. So we never really have a proper reflection of our population within the county, within the state, and really the United States. And so ensuring that we have Armenian American representation on this commission is absolutely critical, and especially individuals that are in tune with the community that's ever so changing. Because of housing prices, we've seen an influx of Armenian Americans move, for example, from the Glendale area to the North Hollywood and San Tahanga area. We know that the older communities that are, let's say, in Montebello and Whittier have kind of become sister cities for the Armenian American community. And when we talk about inclusion, because I think, both Kathy and Rosalind mentioned testimonies, inclusion doesn't actually just mean being topic of conversation, but but being in the conversation. And that is absolutely critical for smaller populations like the Armenian American community. And when we talk about representation, we're not talking about just, allocation for funding and budgets for community projects, but really thorough representation within the county. And this was ever so clear and has been clear during COVID, for example, where, there's a very large Armenian population within the 5th District who sees, Supervisor Catherine Barger as their representative, for example. And she's been the voice of the community during COVID, ensuring that the different departments and the hotlines that are offered actually have Armenian speakers, that when the media is doing outreach and the communications department is doing outreach, information is being provided in Armenian to the community that has language barriers. And so if we don't have the testimony, I think is great, encouraging participation within the commission from these smaller communities, very much as important as the ones that are able to mark, whether it's white, Black, and Pacific Asian on the census data. So I think our biggest concern is not just making sure that we have one Board of Supervisor representative, but ones that serve the different needs and the different makeups within each community as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Ellen. I have a question for anyone who wants to answer. Do commissioners ever gain any recognition from their work? It is very important work, but represents true public service. Anyone that wants to comment on that?
Kathy, would you like to talk about the award that was received, the ASH award? Go for it.
Sure. So at the state level, the first time that the statewide commission was created in 2011, after they had completed their work, they were recognized by the Harvard Public Policy School's ASH Award for good governance because they had done such an amazing job of listening to residents from around the state and creating a hearing process that was unprecedented, not just in California, but around the country. And what I'll say is that I hope that people are not just applying for fame and fortune, but it is the case that because California is the leader and seen as a model around the country, there are many, many opportunities for people who have served as commissioners to then go on and talk about their experience around the country. And so commissioners have found themselves being asked by Arizona and Michigan and Virginia and Pennsylvania. Sorry, we're not going to Hawaii, but lovely places nonetheless to talk about their experiences. And I think that, in a lot of ways, those commissioners have really found that their service was both during the key 4 months of listening to testimony and drawing the lines, but also setting an example for how you can come from many different political backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds and have a hard conversation about something that matters for all of us. We are creating a model for how our country can